James April and his friend Basil February were amongst the first colored people to join the ANC's military Umkhonto we Sizwe, thereby recognizing the common struggle of all black people in South Africa. James was born and grew up in Bokmakiri, near Athlone, Cape Town. He attended Alexander Sinton High School. He later registered as a student at the University of Cape Town, but dropped out after 2 years. In 1964, James and Basil went into exile. Afternoon, James. Thank you for your time. Nice having you here.
My pleasure.
James, can you, for the sake of introduction, just introduce who you are and also talk a bit about your relationship with Basil?
Okay. Yeah, I'm James Henry April, and I was born in Bokmakiri in Athlone, which is in Cape Town. And that's where, from a working class family. And that sort of made me what I am today. My father was a worker. My brothers were all, my sisters worked in a clothing factory many years. I was the first one to matriculate in my family. And I was the youngest of 7 children. And I was going to do law. My school principal, Mr. Joshua, sent me to a firm called Cypress Trust. Because every year they took on a student from Alexander Sinton, and I was sent there to join that firm. But when I had an interview with Mr. Hamley, one of the senior managers there, he advised me to take up law, and, she said, I wanted to do law originally. So he asked, said if they were even prepared to assist me. But he sent me back to Mr. Joshua, and Mr. Joshua persuaded me then to do the BA for teaching. After that, he was saying I could, do the LLB, you see. And he got me into the university. And there I spent the first 2 years in university. After a good start, I dropped out after 2 years.
Which university was that?
University of Cape Town.
Okay.
Because I was too politically involved there. My first taste of outside politics, where I really met, not the first time I met Unity Movement, but there, people of my age, more or less, who influenced me, because they came from different parts of the peninsula.
Yes.
And we shared views and all that, you see. And there were a lot of debates among us because there were 2 camps in the Unity Movement at that time. And so there were constant debates between the 2, sides, you see, of the Unity Movement. And so I was aligned with the one group, and I joined. I saw it, I was quite relatively naive in the political world at the time. And they were always advised to join the organizations of the people, because the Unity Movement was a federal organization composed of civic organizations, sporting organizations, and so on. And they formed a federation, and they sent representatives, which formed part of the anti-CAD. And a similar structure was with the All African Convention, you see. So I took part in the Teachers League as a student.
What year was that?
That was 58, 59.
Okay.
And my 2 years at the university as an associate member, as a student member. So I didn't talk a lot then. And the other organization we participated in was the other organizations, let me say, was the Global Athlete Civic Association.
Okay.
Where Councillor Vaju was very prominent, and Mr. Hammond, you know. And I also took part in the fellowships, in the Cape Flats Educational Fellowship, which was at its headquarters in Athlone, relatively at the Methodist Church, not the Methodist Church, the Methodist School. And then the New Era Fellowship, which I attended regularly every second week on a Saturday evening, every second, you know, and we used to go there and learn, where lectures were given, and by experts in their fields, and we like to listen to them question him. And this what happened, and that's how I enhanced my knowledge, to seek more knowledge. And when I finally met Basil a few years later, because Basil was about 3 years younger than me, so he started later university. But he too, because he was denied entry as a law student, and he was keen to do law too. You know, he chose medicine. But he too got very much involved in politics. A man who, with Basil's brilliance, with 5 straight A's and all that, and matric. At that time, it's tough to earn an A, you know. And I met him then at Stanley Evans's place in Paris, in Woodstock. And there, Basil was reading a book on Lenin, and he was telling me about how Lenin did 4 years of law studies in 1 year and still came out with an A or something, a first class, as I call it, you know, and he was highly impressed. But I said, yes, I also read that, but, you know, and we chatted and got to know one another. You see more. And from then, Basil was also working in town, not far from where I was working, and we used to meet during the lunch hour and chat. And then I joined the CPC, Colored People's Organization. It was a Colored People's Organization before, but it changed its name to the Colored People's Congress in 1961. And at first, you know, Basil was very critical of my joining a colored organization. He said that I lost all sense of my Marxism and all that type of thing. But a few months later, Basil was one of us. You know, he changed because he could see the way the country was moving.
Yeah.
And Basil was one to learn quick. That's one thing about him. He was a very quick learner, to absorb, you know, what's happening. And, you know, he was in touch and not above everybody. You know, he was the one who learned from society, from the people. I was able to draw conclusions from that, you see. And that is why I was always able to align himself. And, you know, that is how and then we started working together. Basil, there were other members of the Colored People's Congress who come from other organizations, like Carter Mani, who came from the Cape Debating Society, workers. We were all part of the Workers' Democratic League at one time, where people who had left the unity movement because of their failure, what they call the abstentionism, their failure to call out the colored people in solidarity with the Africans here in 1960 during that strike. So we were all disgusted and disillusioned with the unity movement for not coming out boldly, you know, in support of the strike. So, and there were many of us from the Workers' Democratic League, from the Cape Debating Society, from the Unity Movement, NDK, and we were part of this Workers' Democratic League, which is a study group mostly. You know, people like Kenny Giancarlo Mani, Raymond Leach, Cosmo Peterson, Hassan Barbasa, Stanley Evans, we were all part of this group,
Right.
Daniels Cabernelis, you know, of various cells we had. We were, and in the end, that also petered out, you know, because of the repression. People felt it's supposed to be underground, but you needed an organization which can work above ground, a mass organization. And that is why it was so important. As Karabali said, when he joined the colored people, he felt himself part of a national movement. For the first time, not just a small study group, but we all felt like that. We were part of a national movement now, you know,
Yeah.
marching forward, you know, and that's what's kept us going during that tough period. You see, Basil with Ahmad Osman was one of the executive members of the Colored People's Congress, was when September and Laguma were house arrested. September they had to rush off because they were going to prosecute him. And we had a newsletter which Basil was largely running. You know, we had one or two issues before we were nabbed for the slogan painting. And it was during this period that our relationship grew closer and closer, you know. This was in 1963, mostly. So we did a lot of work together, you know. And when we were arrested, so we had to report every morning by 9 o'clock to the police station in Athlone or any police station for that matter. And so sometimes we just made it at 9 o'clock to report. But while we were out of detention, we were arrested and detained again. Subsequently, Basil and Andrews and them were appeared in court. Me and a few other guys who had attended the camp in Mohammed in the end of 62, we were still detained further. You know, in the meantime, Basil and them appeared in court, and because of the youth, relative youth, he and Neville Andrews, they were still not 20. I think Basil was just about to turn 20. Because I remember a lot of the girls, the young women, were asking me, is Basil really 19? Because you saw this age in the newspaper. There was a reporter that said, is Basil really 19? You know? So I said, I couldn't, you know, because Basil, why they asked, because there was a project, because Basil could conduct a conversation like a mature person, oldish person. And they were shocked, you know, because he seemed to know so much, speak so wisely and so on, that they were shocked that he was just about to turn 20, you know, in August of that year. And for them, it was quite shocking to hear that Basil was only 19, 20 now. You see, turning 20. And because, so I said, you know, he was so impressive as a person speaking on issues, you know, different things. It's like a man who's been through the mill for years and years, you see, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what impressed people, you see, so much. Yeah.
So James, you and Basil, then the political situation became untenable in South Africa. And you decided to move into exile.
Yeah, that was after I came out of prison early in 1964.
Yeah.
So I was still in limbo for a while, and Basil was underground because the police wanted to rearrest him.
That was in 1964.
In 63.
63.
After they were given a fine and a suspended sentence and all that. You see, the police wanted to rearrest him,
Okay.
both him and Double Andrews.
But Basil was underground at that
And
stage.
he was underground, so,
Okay.
you know, he changed his appearance a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, you see. And when I came out, he was going more above ground. But then we had decided in early 1964, with our contacts, that, you know, that they asked us if we would like to leave the country. So making things easier, because a person like Kenny Jordan was a teacher at Livingston for many years, 20 years. Now, he was wanted in connection to give evidence in the Neville Alexander trial.
Right.
And when he was released from detention, he went underground. Went to stay with people nobody knew, you know? So, in the end, we all came together. People were staying, decided, okay, let's leave the country. You know, we'll decide what to. But Basil was initially very keen to complete his studies. He said, look, I just want to finish my studies, which I started, and then I will give my all to the organization again. But I just want to finish my studies. And then, you know, and we were all agree on that. But then things changed. When we reached Botswana, we were there. Then the Neville Alexander group was sentenced. And to us, it looked very hard sentences. You know, because people, to get 5 or 7 years, 10 years. And Basil stayed with the family there, and he felt so personal about this whole thing. You know, staying with the family, and 3 of them were taken just like that. You see, and it was very difficult for him to reconcile
Yeah.
going to study now, you know, and when these people are in jail, and you know, he felt he must do something, you know. And that is when he changed his mind,
Right.
you know, about finishing his studies first.
Yeah.
And so when we reached finally Dar es Salaam, we were interviewed by the secretariat, which consisted of Oliver Tambo, Moses Kotani, the treasurer. Oliver Tambo was acting president, and Duma Nokwe, who was the secretary general. And Duma was the main. Oliver asked Duma to speak, you know. And they asked us what we would like to do, you see. And we were there, you know, and we said, no, we would like to continue with the struggle to sabotage, you know. But they told us about the problems we were having with some of our members outside the country. Colored people, well, about 1 member. So, okay. And then they took note of what we said. We went to live in a camp there, the Tuli camp. And that is where I met Sandy and then Ranka, who's still alive. He must be closing to 100 now. Yes. There in Limpopo. And just to remind him, I must phone Sam to find out how he is. And there were other people who just come from China. They were trained, they were 3 months, 6 months. And Sandy was there and some other comrades who later. Others again, I didn't see again, or, you know, like Prof. And Master Shabalala, Peter Lenko.
But you and Basil were sent to
Then-
Czechoslovakia
Yeah, and
for
Ali,
training.
And Ali.
And yeah.
Ali that was his pseudonym. The 3 of us went to Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
We stayed there for close to a year.
Okay.
And then we came back. We first stayed in Mandela camp for a few weeks. And from there we were sent to Congo. And in Congo we stayed there close to a year. And in Congo, Basil progressed at first, you know, there were constant rearrangements there and new appointments. And Basil was elected to, not elected, appointed to the political committee, which consisted of himself, Jackson of Bali, Gandhi Sheslani, and Pope Lawrence Buchanuka. We were just talking about him yesterday. And because he appeared, or Joe, the Titans spoke about him, memorial lecture, yesterday on the TV.
Okay.
So Lawrence Buchanuka, the four of them. So Basil and Lawrence Buchanuka became good friends, comrades. You know, then later on, some months later, there was another rearrangement, you know. They take people away from the camp. They was going to Morogoro and so on, because as Joba said, there's progress in the movement. So most of the headquarters committee were taken to Morogoro, but Morogoro became the new center,
Okay.
the capital of the ANC. There, you see. And so the headquarters committee was moved from there to Morogoro. People like Walter Mavuso was chief of communications. He also went and stayed there. And the chief of security, Eric.
So from there, you guys were then
Basil was made Camp Commissar first. Before we went to this, was Camp Commissar for a number of months. You see? Yeah.
and then the Latuli detachment were put together.
The Tuli detachment was put together in not in Morogoro. If my memory serves me right, we were supposed to go, as Joe said, in twos and threes, you know, leave the country. But they had the big problem because Zambia became independent in 64, October 64. So they had to negotiate with the Zambian government to allow us to move through. Not to stay there because they didn't want camps of guerrillas there. We were just supposed to be in transit. But because something happened there at Livingston, the guys were there, they were raided by the white security who was still in charge in Zambia, you know. And I remember Lambert, the late Lambert Malloy, he would refuse to answer questions, I believe. And so people retreated back south, most of them to Lusaka, you know. So they couldn't make progress, but later on, this very same Wilson I was telling you about, he left a group of 7 as a reconnaissance group, cross over into Botswana and to work out, you know, through the northern Botswana jungle, to go through there, you see, and to work out the pathway down south. That was still making use of Botswana. Now, we had supposed to be scouts working there to assist. But these chaps were the first or second day they were arrested. You see, they were detained and questioned and sent back. You see. But the government who came into power, the first black government, September 1966, they had, and this man knew Oliver Tambo well because they were in university together at Sarechi Khama. You see, Oliver told us this, that he had told him, look, my government, on the face of it, it's black, but the civil service is still run by whites who are tied to both that time Rhodesia and to South Africa white governments. You see, so whatever happens in my government is passed on to those 2 places. You know, and he told us all of that because Saretsi had come over to Zambia to visit his sister-in-law. I think he was getting married there. You know, he was married to Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which year did the Latuli detachment, were they actually deployed?
In 1967. Now, you see, this was a reconnaissance group. Now, I just want to say, when we first left Congo for Morogoro, Basil and I, we were given our mission there by Joe Medisa and Moses Mabida. Joe as the commanding-in-chief and Moses Mabida as the chief commissar. They gave us our mission for the Western Cape. Basil was appointed the commander of the Western Cape region. I was his assistant, the commissar,
Yeah.
you know, as they call it, political officer with change. And so the two of us were taken to Lusaka. Eric Kesha took us. And we were there, we were separated. One time I stayed with Joe Mokwena. Basil was taken down to, we first went to Randeri. You know, Basil was taken to Livingston, where they asked him to be in charge of a farm there, you know, as a staging post. And he was running that farm there, you see. I stayed with Joe Mokwena, who was a lecturer in mathematics at Zambia University for a few weeks. Then I was brought back to Lilanda, where I stayed. And later on, Basil joined us. Some months later, he joined us there. And we stayed there a couple of months. And then we met with the ANC leadership, who came down from Morogoro, Kotani, and Oliver Tambo. And they put it to us then there that we must be open to looking for other routes. Because Botswana, each time our people go there, they are arrested. Say, Chulo and Maleka were both arrested, and later on, Ramotsi. You see? So, if you look, whatever we do in Botswana, we always get arrested. We must try, they were told us, look, our option is to go through Rhodesia. We are forming this alliance with ZAPU, and they will assist us to get out. You know, we are not going to engage the enemy. We, South Africans, we are going to steer clear of the enemy. You know, there are people are going to, the Zimbabwean countries are going to start their own bases, build bases in the north and in the south. But we are going, that's why we're going into the Wonky Game Reserve, the simple reason of avoiding contact with the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we did, for the most part. We only went to a town, some of us, there in northern Wonky, what's it? I think it's Wonky town, something like that, where they would buy food, get food, supplies for us. And after that, we just had to live on the land, shot a zebra and some other buck during that period. But most of the time, we were like without food. You know, we lived on berries. Some chaps shot birds. And we couldn't eat the birds, because there was almost no meat on it. We made a bird soup. That kept us going. And then there were a number of days when we went completely without food, you see. But let me tell you this, before that happened, Basil and I decided to split up. He was going to break away with a northern group was going to, you know, the ZAPU people will establish a base up there. Yeah. He was going to break and make his way south, independent. I was also going to go with the main group to the south, going down to the Cholocho area, right? And then I must make my own way from there. We were even given extra money for that purpose by Tobin Covey, the treasurer. Said, because we got to travel the furthest, you know. And so Basil went that side. And they, I'm not sure exactly, but I think they took him to a railway station. But they also engaged the enemy before us on the 13th something day, August. We only engaged the enemy practically on the 22nd of August.
Right.
But we heard on the radio, because Chris Hani had a radio with him, you know. And we heard on the radio this accident taking place. And they said that the terrorists were starving and they're running out of food, and that's why they were hijacking cars. Now, I'm not so sure about that, because certainly we were not, but they didn't know us, you see. But they were following us right on top. All the time, they first had, starting right there at the Zambezi River, there was this high-flying plane, you know, reconnoitering the Zambezi Valley. Then later on, they had spotted planes coming every day, looking for us there. Then once they established our presence, where we exactly, they sent the helicopters to check us, out on us. And that is how the day we, so to speak, broke our fast, we got food and we sent somebody to a village. And people came with, you know, this milk porridge thing, you see. And as we were eating, the enemy attacked us.
Wow.
Because some of the guys fell asleep.
Yeah.
They were tired because we had just finished our nightly march. Because we marched during the night. During the day, we took cover. We built shelters for ourselves to cover ourselves so the enemy can't see us. But at night, the first thing we started marching for the whole night until the early morning. You know, and it started getting light. You see, and that is when we built the shelters.
So it was on this mission where Basil was killed.
Now, that was a Lutuli. Now, let me tell you how that Lutuli detachment was, right? When we were there, on the banks of the Zambezi River, we were there for days that slaughtered the cow, and we were enjoying the meat of the cow. And Oliver Tambo was there, Tom Colby, Joe Badi. Then Joe called me and Basil together, took us to Oliver Tambo, and he said, he wanted to tell Oliver Tambo that the two of us mustn't go across. We're going to keep us back. Didn't sound too good with Basil. He was battling all these years to go home, you see, to get, you know, because even one time I was promised, you know, a forced passport. That didn't materialize. So when this opportunity arises of going now, you know, so we want to take that opportunity. So Oliver agreed with Joe. No, the two of us must stay back. But Basil was insistent that we must go. At least. That Joe said that, okay, Basil is so insistent that I must stay back. Oliver agreed. I must stay back. So I said, no. I'm also tired of Zambia now. You know, I must also go. You see? Oh, so they accepted that.
Okay.
And that's how we crossed with the main group. But before that happened, Oliver gave us the last speech. Not too long, but I mean, he was saying, look, in honor of the late Chief Tuli, who had just died a week or two before, he will call us the Tuli detachment. That detachment of close to 80 people, 80 persons,
Okay.
crossing.
Yeah.
You know, that we call the Tuli detachment. Okay. That's our name.
The Lutuli detachment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So James, you know, Basil died in 1967.
Yes.
And so for our family, it's been a long journey trying to find his grave. And last year, 2024, we got the news that Basil's remains will be repatriated and that he will finally come home. How did that news, given your relationship with Basil, how did you receive that news? How did it affect you?
You know, to tell you the truth, I was never sure about this. Because over the years, people were saying that they're going to try to get the remains of the colony, especially Basil. I mean, this guy, Nicky's friend, was his friend. He was saying also one time we'll try to get Basil's body back, his remains. And it's been over the years, I got a bit disillusioned. I don't know whether the people were serious or were just saying so, or any serious efforts were being made. So it was the first time that the family was involved, closest members of the family. And there was now hope that I could actually see things happening,
Yeah.
And that for me was not an eye-opener, but it was a relief for me also that Basil's remains would be repatriated, you see? That we can finally say our proper goodbyes to Basil,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he left it in, people say indelible imprint on me, but it was like that. We were close, in many ways. And you call it, when I wrote, even, to my friends here from prison and so on, to my brother felt I was too obsessed with Basil. I was trying to free myself from that. But I couldn't.
Right.
It's the early years, they couldn't understand. You see, the close relationship we had formed over the years.
Yes.
You see, in Czechoslovakia, in the camps, back in Zambia. You see.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were in prison together, here, opposite Cullinan Square.
In Roland Street.
We were first year in prison in Wynberg police station.
Yeah.
There we were for a few days. We came to Roland Street. We were there for a while. We were out. We were rearrested. We went to Cullinan Square.
Yes.
You see. And then we came out. And we traveled together. We were close all the time, binding ourselves, having the same experience, going through the same hardships. Leaving the country wasn't easy. Wasn't anybody's thing to do, you see. It was tough, leaving the country, traveling up, you see. You got to sleep for days in places where, in the open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. James, so we as a family naturally kept you close with the repatriation process.
Yeah.
And you've been with us on that journey. When Basil's remains came back, you were there where the official handover by the Western Cape government was given to the family. The funeral day, the view I had was to put a human face to Basil. Many knew Basil as an MK combatant. Many knew him by his MK name as Paul Peterson, but didn't quite know the significance of that name, how it came about.
Yeah.
And we decided that we wanted to put a human factor to Basil and give a bit more than this icon, Basil February, this MK combatant Basil February, but there is this human factor of February that he was brutally honest. He cared a lot,
Yes.
not only for our immediate family, but for people around him
Yes, that's
as well.
true.
And we hoped at the funeral that came through. We also made a decision that because Basil was so impressed with his years at Trafalgar, that we invited some year 11 grade students from Trafalgar today in 2024 to attend his funeral.
Yes.
And the principal there kindly agreed to that. How did that funeral day impact on you?
No, I thought it was, for me, it was the right thing to do. You know, I felt that also Basil would have loved for that to have happened. To have the students, to have the people associated. You know, a life he led at school where his brilliance shone here at that school. But also the school gave him something, you know, which he always took. Traps, you know, was an iconic school for us in Cape Town. And people treasured being there at Traps. You see, and that's what Basil brought. That Traps spirit, you know, that Traps culture, so to speak. And I could see that he inherited that, you see. And that is why it was, for me, the proper thing. And it was like a stroke of genius to get these students there. Because I think Basil would have liked it so much.
He was a proud Trafalgarian.
Yeah, he was, you see. You know.
In conclusion, James, is there, as you reflect on this and the challenges that we face our country today, Basil gave his life. He had a vision for a free, democratic South Africa, and you would know that best than anybody else. He made the ultimate sacrifice. Is there a concluding message that you have for our nation, for the youth of today?
Yeah, you know, it's...
You yourself fought bravely. Having spoken to the likes of Chris Honey, who reminded me about how bravely you fought, not at a distance. He would say to me, right next to him, what is your message to the nation and our youth today?
For me, for us, you know, Basil was, in a sense, I lived. We had adhered to our ideology, but I know that Basil was flexible enough in his thinking to know that you can't be too ideologically driven. You know, you must learn from the experience of life. And that must reshape you. You must draw new conclusions from your experience about life. And experience life as widely as possible, not only in your own milieu, but in the wider milieu of the world. You don't know. And not be too fixed on any particular philosophy, ideology. You know, you must constantly assess it. Assess it in terms of the practical experience that you're having, that the world is having, to see how you must reassess your situation.
Yeah.
You follow, constantly reassessing. Because we never know. The day we act, we expect certain consequences. That consequences may take place, but you look further down the road, then things take a different shape
Yeah.
altogether. Not what you have planned, what hoped for, but turn out something else. It's because you were not ready to adjust your thinking. You didn't learn from your experience, and you must learn all the time. And from that you act, from your due learning. And that's how I can put it. I don't know, you see. But for me, that is the lesson I sincerely know that Basil was like that. Because Basil wasn't one who was stuck to something. He was one to look very creatively at something, you know. And that is why I look forward to the changes taking place in the 60s in the Soviet Union, you know. The Soviet Union was opening up, but it was looking in Czechoslovakia. We were, you see, and that is why this thing erupted in Czechoslovakia in 1968. Because we were witnessing this thing beginning then already. And they were right, you see. You know.
Wonderful. James, thank you so much
Yeah.
for your time and for contributing to this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Because I like to talk about Basil even more. You know. That reminds me also.
Okay.
Yeah.